What do you see as the impact for society of your research?
Well, I'm a geologist who studies how rocks like the one I'm sitting on break down into smaller rocks and even into like sediment and soil through rock cracking. And without that rock breakdown, we would never have sediment that stores our water supply, or soil that grows the plants that you see in this forest, or even life on Earth. And so, by understanding more about how rocks crack, we're actually understanding so much about the entire environment where humans live and work and play.
My research is inspired by helping people, whether it be an average citizen learning where their polling place is, or what their legislature is considering in the upcoming session, whether it be journalists trying to cover state politics in a better manner, or whether it even be policymakers trying to improve outcomes within their state. But at the end of the day, my research and my research team is here to try to provide political insight and policymaking insight to the average citizen.
I'm a humanities scholar, but I teamed up recently with a horticulturist and a public policy expert here at Charlotte in order to help North Carolinians think about the relationships to our agricultural environment and possibilities we might have for creating more sustainable futures. So my research about food and communication seeks to complicate what we know about the South with stories we haven't yet heard. Food is a lens to explore how we might improve issues of equity surrounding race, class, gender, and more.
In terms of the impact of this research, I hope this work will increase awareness of what we already know about the potential influence of cultural capital on various social outcomes, including social mobility. But I also hope it will deepen our understanding about what providers and participants see themselves gaining from involvement in the arts and how that can be better articulated and measured here in Charlotte. In doing this work, I am inspired by efforts of creative people here in Charlotte who are working to provide more equitable access to the arts.
African American thought and culture has been central to our nation's most important social and political movements, from abolitionism to labor to civil rights and women's rights. Black intellectuals such as A. Philip Randolph, Ella Baker, and Angela Davis have helped make this country freer and more just. Understanding Black intellectual history is thus crucial to understanding American history and culture from the Revolutionary era to the present.
Whether investigating the impacts of changing urban economies on migrant food entrepreneurship, tracing the impact of global political economic systems on urban agriculture, or examining the ways that food systems can impact economic mobility. My research seeks to build our understanding of and support for marginalized communities that are building more just and sustainable food systems.
And my group is developing battery chemistry for large-scale energy storage. So we all know that we need to integrate renewable energy sources into the grid to transition away from fossil fuels. But because renewables are intermittent, storage devices are required to power the grid when the sun isn't shining or the wind is maybe not blowing. So in my lab, we're using organic chemistry to prepare molecules that can operate in salt water and can be used to make safe, economical, and more efficient batteries.
This research is important for understanding the challenges of tornado relief and recovery in general, but also how a pandemic affects those processes. And we're working in a community that was hard hit by the tornadoes and later became somewhat of a COVID hotspot. So by talking to different stakeholders, including survivors, volunteers, emergency responders, among others, we hope to gain insight into unique perspectives, lessons learned, and other patterns that might help the community prepare for future disasters, and even ideas for navigating the confluence of multiple disasters.
The biggest impact for society from my research is enhanced watches and warnings for severe weather that are issued by forecasters for the public. Collaboration is extremely important in the work that I do. The main source of folks who use my research are forecasters, and they know operationally things that are challenging. And so I work with them directly to ensure that the output from our research helps them in their day-to-day operations so that they can help save lives.
I see the social impact of this work being that there need to be greater resources for Black women and also for Black children. My current research is on Black girlhood and what have been the barriers to social and economic mobility for Black girls. And so these stories are very much in connection. If I'm looking at freedom and I'm looking at how freedom was gained through civil rights, how then is a legacy being passed on for those efforts and what support is needed?
We have continually dismissed these groups as being temporary or unimportant, and the events of January 6th and Unite the Right and other serious protests that have ended in violence have highlighted that our ignoring these groups or sort of pushing them aside has allowed them to flourish in ways that is now leading to serious violence and consequences for communities across the country. The fact that these groups have been able to commit violence at such a large scale without similar repercussions as we've seen with street gangs demonstrates that there is not equality in how law enforcement and different agencies are intervening with these groups.
I think it is fair to say that the work that I've been engaged in relation to the COVID-19 pandemic and health crisis that surrounds it would not have occurred without a collaborative and team effort involving researchers from different disciplines. The pandemic is really extremely complex, requiring really a different perspective, and really from the data scientists, from the behavioral scientists, from the social scientists, all the way to the spatial epidemiologists. I think the collaboration that I've benefited from has been wonderful in order to provide some answers in a timely fashion.
We are developing a portable diagnostic test to detect active COVID infections. With our technology, we believe that we can improve the accessibility of testing across communities, because it's important to improve the testing capacity for faster and more frequent testing of individuals, because that's the key to effectively mitigate the transmission. When I think long term, I believe the optical technology that we are developing in my lab using nanoscale materials, we can contribute to advance the point of care diagnostics for different types of diseases.
The purpose of this work is to inform policy and programming through the pandemic and into the future. We are one of 22 international teams conducting studies of frontline healthcare workers and their experiences during COVID-19.
COVID-19 has differentially impacted older Americans requiring long-term care. While this work has been incredibly emotional, we believe that our findings can help to shape long-term care for older adults into the future in congregate, community, and in-home settings.
Right now, biohackers, or also called do-it-yourself scientists, are conducting COVID research outside of corporations and universities, which means they're not always subject to the federal research safeguards we're familiar with. So my NSF research is designed to learn what ethical challenges these independent scientists are facing and what tools we should start creating now to help improve their future ability to conduct research ethically.
And one of my major aims as a writer, one of my major objectives is that I want to make better our imperfect world. New communion. Social distancing and self-isolation have separated us. We are farther than triple arm's length from each other. mulling over the direct consequences of proximity, the incalculable harm of leaning on one another, shaking hands, and embracing as one word of love and solidarity. We may be farther apart in our retreats to be safe, since a hazard to walk to a neighbor's or pay a distant visit. But the volume of phone calls to check on you, the floodgate of email and Facebook messages, greetings and goodwill thoughts the other person doesn't know about, all more than make up for the physicality of proximity. The communion has changed from sitting around a table and indulging in bread and wine to the close company of heart and mind, a bonding that wraps us together. There's something sacred in being so close when apart that makes this new relationship such a fulfilling wonder.